You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform on your Ghana's CIMG Media Organization of the Year. And this is multimedia. Now, we have run out of time on the very final issue, but we'll take at least 2 minutes each comment. About at least 2 minutes each comments on this matter. And as you already know, there is some, confusion between. It does appear it is already resolved because the Geba people came out of a meeting and suggested that, well, it's been good, so they are moving forward. There's a roadmap. Let's start with Kweku Bako, 2 minutes, and I hold each one of them to it because that would just be all that they can get. He says the Geba has been engaged in, scaremongering and nationalistic emotionalism. Can you explain what you mean, Kweku? Yes, what do you mean by that?
I had a sense of a certain orchestration of a xenophobia, thing. This thing about Chinese invasion. Instead of looking at the basics, the issues. People were playing on keyboards of people's emotions, using the nationalistic card. Now look at that. This statement is dated 27th September 2018. It is signed by Agyapong-Sam Stakeholders Meeting on Digital Migration. It says the meeting concluded the following resolution: that all parties will collaborate in joint public education campaign on the project moving forward. The earlier decision to have an independent company, CDTT, to operate and manage the infrastructure for the DTT project remains unchanged. Very critical point here.
Yeah, unchanged.
So what was the noise about in the early stages?
But we have heard them say that what they are doing with StarTimes is changing the original plan to do DTT rather than a DTH.
And that is xenophobia. That brings in Chinese invasion. That it just didn't, I have to choose my words carefully. But the point really is that I thought there was too much emotions, being whipped and thrown out there. And that way, there's no rational analysis. Now, this tells you that quite a lot of the noise was avoidable. Completely avoidable.
I see.
We don't have time. Yeah. We'll go into details next week, perhaps.
Okay. And then taking off from that point about the central digital company. So they knew about this all along. What is the complaint? Because among their fear was that we're going to hand over this essential thing to a Chinese company. And the minister had insisted that that will not happen. The only thing they said was that the examples, as in Zambia, which I mentioned the last time, is that they went to Zambia and they didn't go to manage, but only to supply and install. They ended up being the managers because that was the collateral if you default on the loan. And they were now managing, and they are managing for 25 years or so. In fact, Media Foundation for West Africa appears to suggest that if we also have a default in the circumstances, they will take over GBC. Already, they are doing something with GBC.
But that's pathetic. So pathetic deduction. I'm sorry.
My 2 minutes starts now.
Yeah.
Listen, it is not unreasonable for you to look at somebody's predicament and advise yourself. Point number one. Point number two, we've said it at Imani many times. China is not the problem. It is how we negotiate.
Thank you.
Point number three, it is true that Giba has concerns. My view of things is that they have also not sat down to make their case coherent enough. To that extent, I'm asking them, please sit down and analyze the issues clearly.
You're actually repeating to them, not asking.
Well, I told them, And let's see exactly where your problem is, because there are remedies for these things. My understanding, however, based on little interaction I've had with the Chinese, is that look, these gifts they give, which seem to be what make us elect for them all the time, can be dangerous.
Okay.
So let us be careful. Then also, I have every sympathy for any Ghanaian company in that space. And if we are going to make an election, we should bend backwards to do things to favor our own. I will never apologize for that.
Right.
But let the facts be out and let us go forward in a way that is best for this country.
Okay. Now, Honorable, sir, the other fear people have raised is this, that we have signed some agreement, which we are working with for now. Meanwhile, we don't have the framework agreement, which will determine the modalities of the loan. Are we sure that we will have an upper hand?
Which loan?
The loan from the Exim Bank.
To do what?
For the purposes of the DTT.
To finance the
migration.
building.
Yeah.
Good. So that is where the confusion is. And that is why there's too much confusion in the system.
Okay.
Now, somehow, the Minister of Communication is saying that, look, we are not even talking about the DTT yet. We are talking about a 300 satellite
Villages
set-top
project.
boxes. And that is what the company set up locally by an aggregation of people is to do. Okay? And we are saying that make the information available. If the company, StarTimes, is supplying the material to them, why will you give StarTimes tax waiver? Okay? That is that part. As for the 195 million Exim Bank thing, it's a different gamut of things. Because it started as an agreement on the 12th day of June 2012.
12th day of April.
April 2012. Went through the full hawk up to the International Court of Commerce, and then came back to Ghana. And while we are using administrative power, or executive power to resurrect it, it's a different matter. For me, I think that we need to walk a tightrope. You see, the Chinese are our friends, but they are not. You don't take
They're
loans.
not for the Christmas.
They are not for the Christmas. And the Chinese have an insatiable demand for resources. Resources, and you know you're a lawyer. Every day we discover new resources, but they are ahead of us. So they see it better than we do.
Okay.
So a note of
through.
caution is distinct from scaremongering.
Okay, thank you. A note of caution is distinct from scaremongering. Yes, Mr. Fiyomakis. Earlier you thought I'm an advocate for Domelovo, right? I tell you something, if you don't know me, you just don't.
Oh, come on a lighter.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
did you take that seriously?
Don't worry, go ahead.
That's the web that we should exercise caution.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it, yeah.
That one I sent you and
Yeah.
but it was
Yeah,
on the
don't
lighter.
worry at
I'm
all.
also his advocate.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
He's doing the right thing, except that with all the caveats.
Okay, so quick.
Yes. People seem to be unaware that this 300 community village
Village like that,
district
Satellite
or
project,
satellite
yeah.
project is being funded by Chinese grants. And under the grants, StarTimes, which has been a company operating in Ghana since 2010, was so nominated or elected by the grantor to undertake the project. We all know, the two of us, in Parliament, when there's a grant and or even a loan, and there are some importations and all that, if there's a need for tax waivers, Parliament would have to look at it. These are some of the conditions. So it isn't the case that government has given some right to a Chinese company, Chinese company that has just emerged and is giving a certain project to that company under any loan. No, that is not the case. So once that is cleared, I'm happy. The caution from the NDC that the Chinese, the way they negotiate, you must proceed with caution. I agree. Because they've had their hands bent before.
Yeah, but it's not from only NDC.
No, I'm narrowing it on.
to
Yes. I mean, there's a general caution. But particularly the NDC's caution to us. I agree.
Okay, I see your point.
Because,
When we caution them,
because in the CDB, $300 million in pre-disbursement and other penalties alone, 5 years before capping, they have spent that money free of charge.
We cautioned them, they didn't
All right?
listen.
So I understand. But I'm sure Esla and her team have taken it on board.
Are you sure?
Oh, why? But all of us, everybody, why? Is she that adamant? I don't think so. Kofi, you see, Kofi, I now understand why George said something. No, it's unfair. It's unfair.
Okay.
I now understand why. No, redraw it there. Redraw it there. You see,
Sorry, we are running out of time at this point. My guests have been Abdul Malik Kwekubaku, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, who is preaching something rather than scaremongering and nationalistic emotionalism.
Yes.
Inusa Fuseni is MP, Tamale Central. Kofi Bentil is Vice President, Imani Africa. Alexander Kwamina Afenyomarking is MP, Futu. I'm Samson Ladi Ayanini. My outfit, as always, is by Latida. Have a good afternoon.